Diana Winters smoothed down the front of her beige dress as she approached the glass doors of the Arlington, one of Washington's most prestigious restaurants. At 45, she carried herself with quiet confidence, born of decades in the culinary industry. The restaurant's facade gleamed with polished brass and elegant lighting, a stark contrast to the more casual establishments she typically frequented. "You can do this," she whispered to herself, taking a deep breath. 3 weeks earlier, Diana had received a call that changed everything. Edward Blackwood, a culinary legend she'd met at a chef's conference 5 years ago, had passed away after a long illness. To her shock, Edward's lawyer informed her that his final wish was to offer Diana the opportunity to purchase the Arlington, the crown jewel of his restaurant empire. "He always admired your integrity and vision," the lawyer had explained. "He believed you would honor the restaurant's legacy while bringing your own touch to it." The transaction had been handled discreetly through Edward's legal team. Edward had merely informed his staff that the restaurant had been sold to a new owner who would be taking over soon. No names, no details, just the promise of a transition period before the official introduction. Diana had debated for days before agreeing to purchase the restaurant. She'd spent 25 years working her way up in the industry, from dishwasher to line cook, eventually becoming an executive chef and restaurant consultant. The Arlington represented everything she'd worked toward, recognition at the highest level of fine dining. But before announcing herself as the new owner, Diana wanted to experience the Arlington as a customer. She needed to understand the restaurant's atmosphere, the quality of service, and how the staff interacted with patrons. It was a practice she'd developed over years of restaurant consulting. See it through the customer's eyes first. As she pulled open the heavy glass door, the soft sounds of a jazz quartet welcomed her. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over white tablecloths and polished silverware. The maitre d', a slender man with a precise bow tie, glanced up from his podium. "Good evening, madam. Do you have a reservation?" His tone was professional, but cool, his eyes quickly assessing her simple attire. "Yes, for Winters." "Diana Winters, party of one," she replied, maintaining eye contact. The maitre d' scanned his list, his expression flickering with surprise. "Ah, yes, Ms. Winters," he hesitated. "We don't often get solo diners here at the Arlington." Diana offered a polite smile. "I understand. Still, I've heard wonderful things about your chef's tasting menu." He nodded stiffly and gestured to a young woman in a crisp black uniform. "Melissa will show you to your table." As Diana followed the hostess through the dining room, she couldn't help but notice the curious glances from other patrons. The Arlington was clearly a place for power players and celebrations. Tables were occupied by couples in evening wear, groups of business executives in expensive suits, and what appeared to be political figures surrounded by attentive staff. Melissa led her to a small table near the kitchen doors. Not the worst table in the house, but certainly not the best. Diana noted this detail mentally as she sat down. "Your server will be with you shortly," Melissa said, placing a leather-bound menu before her. Left alone, Diana took the opportunity to observe. The restaurant hummed with efficient energy. Servers moved with practiced precision, sommeliers presented bottles with flourish, and plates emerged from the kitchen like works of art. She recognized the choreography of high-end service, appreciating the skill behind it. At a nearby table, a couple was being served champagne by a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit. His silver hair was perfectly styled, and a distinctive bow tie completed his refined appearance. He spoke with animation, making the couple laugh as he recommended the evening's specials. From the difference shown by other staff, Diana quickly deduced this must be the restaurant manager. She watched him move from table to table, his manner changing subtly with each group. With the business executives, he was respectfully formal. With the apparent politicians, he was deferential and attentive. With the elderly couple celebrating what looked like an anniversary, he was charm personified. Diana opened her menu, curious to see how Edward's culinary vision had been maintained. The prices were as steep as expected, but that didn't concern her. What interested her was the balance between tradition and innovation, and whether the restaurant had kept pace with evolving tastes. A server approached her table, notepad in hand. His smile seemed fixed, his enthusiasm noticeably dimmer than what he displayed at the tables of more obviously affluent guests. "Good evening, ma'am. My name is Ryan. I'll be your server tonight. Can I start you with something from the bar?" Diana smiled warmly. "Good evening, Ryan. Yes, I'd love a glass of your house bourbon neat." Ryan's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded. "Right away, ma'am." As he walked away, Diana settled in, ready to experience what would soon be her restaurant. Diana sipped her bourbon slowly, savoring its complex notes while discreetly observing the restaurant's operations. The Arlington ran like a well-oiled machine, with servers gliding between tables and sommeliers offering wine pairings with practiced ease. Yet there was something mechanical about the service, efficient but lacking warmth. Ryan returned to take her order, his demeanor professional but reserved. "Have you decided, ma'am?" "I'd like to try the chef's tasting menu, please," Diana replied. "And I'd love the wine pairings as well." A flicker of surprise crossed Ryan's face. The tasting menu was the Arlington's premium offering. 7 courses with optional wine pairings that doubled the already substantial price. "Of course, ma'am. That's an excellent choice." His tone suggested he thought it might be beyond her means, but he dutifully noted her selection. "Chef's tasting menu with wine pairings." As Ryan left, Diana noticed the silver-haired manager watching from across the room. He whispered something to another server who glanced in her direction and nodded. Diana pretended not to notice, focusing instead on the elegant place settings and the fresh flowers adorning each table. Her first course arrived promptly, a delicate amuse-bouche, presented on a porcelain spoon. The flavors were exquisite, a testament to the kitchen's talent. Diana made mental notes about the balance of flavors and the presentation, already thinking of subtle improvements she might suggest once she officially took over. Between courses, she observed the manager more closely. His name was Victor, she learned, as she overheard other staff addressing him. He moved through the dining room with the confidence of someone who considered the space his domain. His interactions with guests were polished, yet there was an undercurrent of something else, a certain calculation in how he distributed his attention. By her third course, Diana had noticed a pattern. Victor lavished attention on tables with obvious displays of wealth, expensive watches, designer attire, or prominent figures he seemed to recognize. Other tables received competent but perfunctory service. It was subtle, but to Diana's experienced eye, unmistakable. As she finished a perfectly seared scallop, Victor approached her table. His smile didn't quite reach his eyes as he introduced himself. "Good evening, madam. I'm Victor Remington, general manager of the Arlington. I hope you're enjoying your meal." His tone was courteous but lacked the warmth he'd shown to other guests. "It's lovely," Diana replied. The scallop was perfectly cooked. Victor nodded, his gaze flickering over her simple dress and understated jewelry. "The chef's tasting menu is quite ambitious. Our sommelier will be by shortly with your next wine pairing." There was a slight emphasis on ambitious that didn't escape Diana's notice. "I've been looking forward to dining here for some time," she said, maintaining her composure. "I understand the previous owner, Mr. Blackwood, was quite particular about maintaining standards." A shadow crossed Victor's face. "You knew Edward?" "We met at a culinary conference several years ago," Diana explained, watching his reaction carefully. Victor's demeanor shifted slightly. "I see. Well, Edward built this restaurant on a commitment to a certain caliber of dining experience. We strive to maintain that legacy." The implication hung in the air between them, a suggestion that she might not quite fit that caliber. "I'm sure you do," Diana replied evenly. Victor offered a tight smile. "Please enjoy the rest of your meal. If there's anything you need, within reason, of course, don't hesitate to ask." As he walked away, Diana noticed him approach a nearby table where a couple was loudly discussing their recent yacht purchase. Victor's posture transformed. Shoulders relaxed, smile broadened, manner suddenly oozing with genuine warmth. Throughout the next few courses, Diana continued her quiet observation. The food was exceptional, though not quite as innovative as she'd hoped. The service was precise, but performed with a detachment that suggested routine rather than passion. Her attention was repeatedly drawn to the staff interactions. While some, like Ryan, simply seemed to mirror Victor's attitude toward less affluent-appearing guests, others appeared uncomfortable with this approach. One young server in particular, Melissa, the hostess from earlier, seemed to wince whenever Victor made a dismissive comment about a guest. When Ryan brought her fifth course, Diana engaged him in conversation about the restaurant's history. Though initially reserved, he began to open up as she showed genuine interest. "I've been here 5 years," he told her, "since before Mr. Blackwood fell ill." "What was he like as an owner?" Diana asked. Ryan's expression softened. "The best. He knew everyone's name from the dishwashers to the sommelier, treated everyone with respect." He lowered his voice. "Things have been different since he stepped back from daily operations." Diana nodded thoughtfully. "I imagine leadership sets the tone." "You have no idea," Ryan replied before catching himself. "Excuse me, I shouldn't—" "No need to apologize," Diana assured him. "I appreciate your candor." As Ryan walked away, Diana made a mental note. The restaurant had a solid foundation, excellent food, beautiful setting, skilled staff, but its culture had clearly shifted under Victor's management. It was precisely the kind of situation she specialized in addressing as a consultant. Now, as the owner, she would have the authority to make real changes. Diana had just begun her dessert course, a deconstructed chocolate souffle with artisanal vanilla bean ice cream, when a commotion at the entrance caught her attention. A group of 4 men in expensive suits entered, loudly greeting Victor, who rushed to welcome them with unprecedented enthusiasm. "Senator Williams, what an unexpected pleasure!" Victor exclaimed, his voice carrying across the dining room. "Your usual table isn't ready, but I'll make arrangements immediately." Diana watched as Victor snapped his fingers at the staff, creating a flurry of activity. 2 servers quickly began resetting a large table in the restaurant's prime location, while others hurried to bring champagne flutes and an ice bucket. Diana's server, Ryan, was pulled away mid-explanation of her dessert to help accommodate the new arrivals. She didn't mind. It gave her an opportunity to continue observing Victor's management style in action. As the evening progressed, the senator's group grew increasingly boisterous, their laughter and conversation dominating the previously subdued atmosphere. Victor hovered nearby, laughing at their jokes and personally ensuring their glasses were never empty. When Diana finished her meal, she signaled for the check. Ryan brought it promptly, but seemed distracted and harried from juggling her table and helping with the senator's party. "Everything was excellent," Diana told him sincerely. "I'd like to speak with the sommelier before I leave if possible. The wine pairings were exceptional." Ryan looked flustered. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but Thomas, our head sommelier, is currently attending to Senator Williams's table." Perhaps I could convey your compliments?" "Of course," Diana replied, understanding the young man's dilemma. "But there was one particular wine I wanted to ask about, the Bordeaux that accompanied the lamb course." Ryan hesitated. "Let me see if he can spare a moment." As Ryan walked away, Diana noticed Victor observing their interaction with a frown. He intercepted Ryan, leaning in to whisper something that made the server's shoulders tense. A moment later, Victor approached her table himself, his expression a mask of polite condescension. "Madam," he began, his voice deliberately loud enough to be heard at nearby tables, "I understand you're requesting our head sommelier's attention." Diana nodded calmly. "Yes, I wanted to inquire about one of the wines in the pairing. It was quite extraordinary." Victor's smile tightened. "I'm afraid Thomas is occupied with Senator Williams's party. As you can appreciate, we must prioritize our regular patrons." The emphasis on regular hung in the air, a clear implication that she didn't qualify for such consideration. "Of course," Diana replied evenly. "Perhaps you could answer my question instead. The Bordeaux with the lamb course, is that available by the bottle?" Victor's eyebrows rose slightly. "That particular vintage retails for approximately $300 per bottle." He named a price significantly higher than the market value, watching for her reaction. "That seems reasonable," Diana said. "I'd like to purchase a bottle to take home." A flicker of surprise crossed Victor's face before he composed himself. "I'm not certain we can accommodate that request. Our wine selection is curated specifically for in-house dining experiences." Diana maintained her composure. "I understand, but I'd be happy to pay a premium for the convenience." Victor's mask of civility began to slip. "Madam, this isn't a liquor store. The Arlington caters to a particular clientele with a sophisticated understanding of fine dining etiquette." His voice had risen, attracting the attention of nearby diners. Diana felt their eyes on her, some curious, others embarrassed on her behalf. "I'm well aware of dining etiquette," Diana replied calmly. "I simply enjoyed the wine and wish to purchase a bottle." Victor let out a short, derisive laugh. "Perhaps somewhere else would be more appropriate for your needs. We can recommend several establishments with more accessible options." The word accessible dripped with condescension. A hushed silence fell over the nearby tables as diners pretended not to listen. Diana reached for her drink, taking a slow, deliberate sip in the tense quiet. The ice clinked audibly against the glass. She could feel Victor's smug satisfaction at having put her in her place, a woman in a simple dress who dared to request special treatment in his prestigious establishment. What Victor didn't realize was that Diana's calm exterior concealed not embarrassment, but calculation. As she took another sip, she caught the eye of a distinguished older gentleman at a nearby table. He gave her a small, sympathetic nod, clearly uncomfortable with Victor's behavior. Victor, mistaking her silence for humiliation, leaned in closer. "Your bill has been prepared, unless there's anything else." The dismissal in his tone was unmistakable. Diana placed her glass down carefully. "Actually, there is one more thing," she said, her voice steady. "I'd like to know how long you've been managing the Arlington." Taken aback by the unexpected question, Victor replied automatically. 5 years. I was personally selected by Mr. Blackwood." The lie came easily to his lips. Diana nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting. Thank you for the information, Victor." She placed her credit card on the bill tray. "That will be all for now." As Victor walked away with her payment, Diana pulled out her phone and made a brief note. The humiliation had been public and deliberate, and it had told her everything she needed to know about the man currently running what would soon be her restaurant. She waited until Victor was out of earshot before quietly asking a passing server, "Excuse me, could you tell me when your shifts end this evening? I'd like to leave an additional gratuity for the kitchen staff." The server, surprised by the request, hesitated. "The kitchen closes at 11, ma'am." "Perfect," Diana replied with a smile. "Thank you." Diana stepped out of the Arlington into the cool evening air, Victor's mocking laughter still echoing in her mind. She took a deep breath, centering herself. For a moment, she stood motionless under the restaurant's elegant awning, watching the valet rush to retrieve luxury vehicles for departing diners. Instead of heading home, Diana walked to a small coffee shop across the street. She ordered a simple black coffee and settled into a corner table with a clear view of the Arlington's entrance. From her bag, she pulled out a leather-bound notebook and began to write, occasionally glancing up at the restaurant. At precisely 11:05 p.m., Diana watched as kitchen staff began to exit through a side door. They looked tired, but were chatting amiably. She recognized Ryan among them, his bow tie now loosened around his neck. Diana gathered her things and made her way across the street. Ryan noticed her approaching and looked surprised. "Miss Winters, did you forget something?" "Actually, I was hoping to speak with you and some of the other staff," Diana said, glancing at the small group that had gathered. "I'd like to buy you all a drink if you're interested." The staff exchanged curious looks. A young woman, Melissa, the hostess from earlier, stepped forward hesitantly. "Why would you want to do that?" she asked, her tone suggesting genuine confusion rather than suspicion. Diana smiled warmly. "Let's just say I had an illuminating dining experience this evening, and I'd like to learn more about the Arlington from the people who know it best."